والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور بنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. نوعنا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بالله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وبه سبحانه مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك ومشرب الصوفي الهني وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصوفي يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصوفي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. لله رب العالمين آمين. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we are continuing with our, I think we stopped at the shurut of azan kan, my mark is there, right, so, Bismillah, right, you can actually take a line here, right, because in my book there's actually a section, right, but in the English here it seems as if there's no partition, right, but it's actually a section, shurutul azan, okay, wa sharutul azan, or shurutul azan, okay, wa sharutu sihhatul azan. This is the section, the conditions of the validity of the azan. Right, so if I were to ask you, right, in the exam, like, what are the conditions for the azan to be valid, this will be where you're looking at. Okay, the conditions. Right, so as mentioned, that we learn integrals, we learn conditions, we learn nullifiers. Right? For every act of obedience, there are three main things you look into. Then there are branch things. So three main things you look into will be conditions, integrals, either the rukun, the arkan, the wajibat, the condition, the shurut, the conditions, then the arkan or the wajibat, and the last one they look into is nullifiers or the mubtilat, what batalkan the thing. Then to extend it, you look into the sunnahs and the makruhs. Right, so the first three are essential, then the third and the fourth and the fifth are additional. Okay, so the shurut sihat al-azan al-waqt illa subuh, right, so that the prayer time has come. For the azan to be valid, the prayer time must have come, except for the case of subuh, whereby you're allowed to do the first azan after half the night of has gone by, and the first azan on Friday to call people to the prayer. That is that for the first shart, so you can put it, you can number if you want to, right, because it's all in a line. It's not placed, you know, as numbered, right. ويجوز بعد نصف الليل وإلا الأول من يوم الجمعة. تمام. So these are the two exceptions. So all prayers, the azan is only valid after the coming in of the prayer time. Whereas except for two prayers, which is subuh and Friday prayers. Okay, so understand that. Okay, then of the other conditions of the azan, you will see here. Number two is tartib. Right, number two is tartib. Right, meaning that it has to be said in order. That's the meaning of tartib in the azan. Right, so you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. So you cannot mess up the tartib. You can go, you know, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Hayya ala salah. You can't mess up the tartib. It has to be in the correct tartib that was revealed to the companions. Right, the azan was given to the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was not given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hikmah behind that, or the wisdom behind that, is because in the azan there is a statement hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah. Like there's a statement to come to prayer, come to success. And it is said that if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the one who say it, then it will become an instruction from the Prophet, and it becomes binding or compulsory on any person who hears the azan to come to the prayer immediately, in obedience to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So out of Allah's mercy and also Rasulullah's mercy, he himself never called the azan, that people will hear the azan and not come lah, and it's not those on them. Right? It's not sinful on them to do that. It's highly makruh, but it's not sinful. But however, if it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who actually called the azan, then it will become immediately binding on the people to actually respond to the call of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because you have to obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many stories in his time whereby he would tell a companion to tell someone else to do something, because especially when he knows that the person whom he wants to address might not obey him or might not do what he wants him to do, and it's not wajib, it could perhaps be sunnah. Right? So he would tell a companion to tell someone else, right? So that it doesn't become directly binding on that person. It's from his mercy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he knows that whatever he commands his companions to do, it becomes wajib on them immediately. Okay, muwala meaning to be continuous, for the adhan to be continuous, right? So meaning not to take an extra long pause, right, between the different parts of the azan. So sequence and continuity, right? And that the muwala, right? So you don't go, for example, right, you don't go Allahu Akbar, and then go away, take some tea, coffee, or what, come back. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Talk somebody for a while, come back. No, of course not. Right, so the azan is muwala, meaning continuity. Once you begin the azan, you should recite the azan all the way to the end without taking any long break in between the azan. And then kaunuhu min wahidin, from one person doing the azan. Right, only should be done by one person, so you shouldn't be sharing between two people. It shouldn't be like one person do the first half, then someone do the second half. No lah, the entire azan done by one person. Bil Arabiyya in kana samma man yuhsinuha. Right, so in the Arabic language, if there is amongst them, right, those who are able to do it in the Arabic language, and wa alayhi an yata'allam, and those who not know how to recite in Arabic should learn how to do so. It's not difficult. The adhan is not difficult. Right? So the adhan should be in the Arabic language. Okay? Alright. So so up till here, if you have numerated, right, how many conditions do you have here? Right, so you should have up till 1, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so 5 conditions so far, up to the point of it being in the Arabic language. Okay, and then off the other parts of the conditions, and it's continuation. It's a continuation. And then as-sama'u ba'd al-jama'a wasma'u nafsihi in kana munfaridan. Right, so this is a condition that the jama'ah should hear him say it, and if he is saying it by himself, he should also be able to hear it. So altogether, for the condition of the azan, there are 7 conditions. So if you number them, you should get 7. Do you all get 7? There should be 7 conditions for the azan. So the first one is there has to be in time, right? There's an exception here. And then tertib, muwala, right, by one person, Arabia. Okay. The jama'ah needs, if there's a jama'ah there, the jama'ah should hear it, and there's no jama'ah there, then he himself should hear it. Okay, so of course mouthing the adhan doesn't count. You have to say it out loud. Okay, tamam, that is clear. All right, continuing. Okay, now condition of the muazzin. Difference, condition of azan 7. We just spoke about it. So the azan itself, the condition. Then who can be the muazzin? Right, so this is a separate matter. Right, the conditions of the muazzin, who is a valid muazzin. So the first one is a Muslim. Right, so if someone is a non-Muslim, they cannot call the azan. It's not valid from them. Second condition is that he has to be tamyiz. Right, so a child below the age of tamyiz cannot call the azan in a valid manner. And so if you get a 4-year-old, call the azan, and then you teach the 4-year-old to say like this, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, and then he said the 4-year-old does the azan, it's not valid. It has to be someone who is mumayyiz, right? Then it is valid. Male, a male person calls the azan. Females call the iqama. And then now, right, so it has to be, so the person has to be Muslim. It has to be mumayyiz, and has to be male. That's all. Right, the conditions of the muazzin is only 3. Alright, done, only 3 conditions of the muazzin. Okay, and then Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So then it is offensive to lengthen the azan beyond. It's actually offensive to lengthen the azan, to speak little in it, and to leave the reply for the azan and the iqama Right, so it's makruh, right? It's makruh, right? To not to do any of this. As if you speak a lot in it, then you have broken the azan's continuity and you have to redo the entire thing. So this whole thing here is what is makruh. Right, makruh to do in the azan. Right, so tamtid, right? Tamtid, it means to lengthen it without need. So if you're at home, at the masjid, because masjid usually will lengthen it so that more people can hear it and to make the azan longer. But if you're at home and you're by yourself, don't lengthen it. Just keep it as it is. So you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, like that. I've heard people in their own homes, they azan like this. Allah, you go Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. It's too long. Like keep it short. The whole point why the masjid is lengthening the azan is so that they can lengthen the timing for the azan so more people can hear it. But if you're not trying to call people who's far away to come to the prayer, then keep your azans short. You can do 2 harakats for the word Allah. Right, don't have to go more than 2 harakats. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Enough. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Right, so you can just do it that way. Okay. To speak a bit in while you're doing the azan. Right, so for example, if someone goes Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, then someone gives salams. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Can and then you can continue after that. It's a small amount of speech to respond to someone's salams, and you continue. But of course, it's makruh. It's makruh to actually respond to salams while you're doing the azan and while you're responding to the azan. You should focus on responding to the azan. Then after the entire azan, you can respond to the salams of the person. If you are in the bathroom and then you hear the azan being called, right? If you're in the countries like Tarim or that, whereby the azan is all around, Malaysia, Indonesia, you can hear the azan all around, right? So if you're in the bathroom and you hear the azan being called, right, Baba Shua said that you respond to the azan in your heart. So you don't say on your tongue because there's the word Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it, but you respond in your heart. And then, but that doesn't count for anything. There's no reward in doing that. Right, but it's just more of you being present. But again, there's no reward. The reward is only if you say it out. So you hear the azan outside, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. In your heart you're going Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. In your heart you're doing it in the bathroom. Then she said when you leave the bathroom, you qada the response. You actually qada the response. So when you leave the bathroom, then the azan has already ended. So you just go quickly in the response. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, la hawla wa quwwata illa billah, la hawla wa quwwata illa billah. And you do it that way. And in responding to the azan, and then you do the dua after azan. So you don't miss out in responding to the azan, because the one who responds to the azan, inshallah, that will guarantee for them a good ending, a husnul khatimah, a good ending. Wa tarku ijaba is makruh as well. To ignore responding to the azan is makruh. As mentioned earlier, if you have a digital azan clock or your phone or your computer or whatever that gives azan, you can respond to these digital recordings with the intention that you are responding to azans going on in the masajid in your area or in your country that you're unable to hear. Right? So you can niyat that, you intend that you're responding to the clock or to your phone or to your computer, right? But you don't respond to the recorded one. You're responding to the real ones are going on, right, in the country. All right. وأن يؤذن قاعدا أو راكبا إلا المسافر الراكب. Right, so it's also makruh. Right, so continuing with what is makruh, right, to do your azan while you're seated. Right, you should while seated, right, or riding. Right, or on a vehicle riding, or except for a traveler on the vehicle. Right, so basically it is right, so it's offensive to sit and do the azan, right, or while you're riding, except if you are a traveler and you have to be riding at that time, right, in at that point in time. Mashallah. Right, so sunnah is to stand up, right, and perform the azan. Right, so just to go through a little bit, the one about extending the azan or letting the azan, if the meaning changes, it becomes haram. right? If the meaning changes, it becomes haram. As mentioned, that the only word that you can lengthen is the word Allah, salah, falah. So the words that you can lengthen. Right? Other than that, you should not be lengthening the words. Right? So you go Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Only the word Allah can be lengthened. Then Hayya ala salah can be lengthened. Hayya ala al-falah. Falah can be lengthened as well. Okay, okay. قد قامت الصلاة for the إقامة قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. Again, إقامة should be done as quick as possible. You shouldn't be lengthening إقامة at all. Okay, so kalam fihi, right? So what is short? Like a short speech in the azan. Right? Short speech will be lesser, right? Than it's short speech in the azan, and this speech in this azan, it is done by the it's not done by the muazzin, it's done by the one who's listening to the azan. The one who's done, if it's done by the muazzin, then the muazzin has now contradicted the muwala, because there's to be muwala in azan, right? Muwala meaning that you recite the azan you continuously from start to end. So this short speech is the one who is listening to the azan. So any short speech, right, in the azan is makruh. Right, short speech, right? Long speech is even more makruh, of course. To speak through the azan or over the azan is very makruh. Subhanallah. And that will cause for a person to have a bad ending. Su'ul khatimah. It will cause for a person to have a bad ending. Right? So any small amount of speech. So in a sense, it's makruh. Right? So in a sense, that if someone gives salam, as I mentioned just now, that you shouldn't be responding to the salams. Right? So even if they respond to the salam, right, it's not haram, but it's makruh. Okay, alhamdulillah. Right, so if someone gives salams, do not respond. You respond after the azan has finished. You respond to the salams. So it's not dosa lah. I didn't respond to the salams. And also, if someone comes in and you hear an azan, if you hear the azan being called, you don't give salams. Okay, so if you come to the masjid, the azan is being called, you don't go assalamu alaikum. You don't. You actually respond to the azan first. Subhanallah. And it said that to respond to the azan, right, even if it's from an electronic device, mashallah. Okay, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. It is offensive to lengthen the azan, to speak to leave the reply. It is to not reply to the azan. It's offensive to do it while you're seated on a vehicle. Right? It is also offensive, right, for the azan to be called by someone who is a fasiq, right? A fasiq, someone who is a transgressor, right? So it is best that the azan be called by someone who's known for his uprightness. Okay, fasiq or sobiyan or a child, right? So it's not sah also anyway, right? Sobi is not it's not sah because he has to be mumayyiz in the first place. Somebody on hadath, right? Junuban wa muhadisan, someone in major or minor hadath. The one who's doing the azan should have tahara, they should be in purity. إلا إذا أحدث في أثناء الأذان فيتمه. Except if someone while he's doing the azan he enters a state of minor impurity, he should finish the azan till the end of it. So if he came into the azan, he had tahara, then during the azan he batal his wudu, or he nullify his wudu, he should continue the azan. والتوجه فيها لغير القبلة. It is offensive again to continuing on what is makruh to do during the azan, to face anywhere else except the qibla. So sunnah to face the qibla, makruh to face anywhere else. And ويسن ترتيله وترجيع فيه. Right, so to recite it is recommended, sunnah to pronounce the words and to recite it correctly, right, and to repeat the testimony of faith softly before calling it out loud. This tarji'. So if you listen to, like, for example, Darul Musafa azan in Tarim, you will hear the muazzin say the shahada quietly, and then he says the shahada loudly. Right, so he goes like this. The muazzin he will go Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And again, they don't actually extend the Allah very long. They go maximum 4 harakats. They don't go really very long. And then so when it comes to the shahada, you will hear a very soft tone. He will say, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah, ashhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah. So there is a softer, is before he actually says it. Before he says it, he will say it quietly, then he will call it out loud. Right? And then the people who are hearing, they will respond to the shahada, and they will repeat the shahada. And similar to that, it is someone who is performing the iqamah. Right? So the iqamah, same thing also, to do it first, right, before you say it out loud. Tamam. And then tasweeb. Right? So tasweeb, right, is to tasweeb is to say as-salatu khayrum minan nawm. As-salatu khayrum minan nawm. That is tasweeb. Right? So during subuh timing, whether the performance during its time, azan, or is a makeup qada. Right? So for in the timing of subuh, right, when people are asleep, to say as-salatu khayrum minan nawm. Write it down. As-salatu. This is what tasweeb, meaning of tasweeb. Tasweeb will be as-salatu khayrum min an-nawm. Okay, as-salatu khayrum min an-nawm. Prayer is better than sleep. Okay, that is sunnah. It's also sunnah for the muazzin. Just remind us. Okay, tamam. So it's sunnah also, right, for the muazzin to turn his face, not his chest, but his face, because the chest should be facing towards the qibla, the face turns. So when he says hayya ala salah, right, he turns to his right, hayya ala salah. When he says hayya al falah, he turns to his left. Right, so hayya ala salah, hayya ala al falah, right, calling the people, right, to the prayer. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Right, so turning his face will be to the point whereby his cheek is able to be seen by the one who is behind him. It means turning like that. Right, so it's how you do in your salams. You turn your head completely 90 degrees, right, to this way. That is called turning that is what counts by turning the head, right, but not with the chest. Right, don't move the entire body, right, because that will be making him face away from the qibla. Okay. And it's also sunnah for him to place both his index fingers in his two ears during the azan, but not the iqamah. I had to plug his ears with his index fingers, so he only hears the azan to himself. And so he's gonna hear his own voice. Subhanallah. The muazzin should be one who can be trusted, and one who does not claim any payment for the azan performed with a good voice, and he should be on a high ground close to the masjid, because the whole point is to call people to the azan, to the prayer. The whole point is for the azan to call people to the prayer. So he should be someone who has kaun mu'adhin thiqah. Thiqah meaning someone who is trusted in the religion, someone who knows the timings of prayer. It should be someone who's able to tell prayer timings, and it's important that he is able to timings not just by the clock but by the sky as well. So by knowing how to tell the prayer timings, by shadows lah. If he's able to, then that is better. Because in case the clock is wrong, or in case the calculated timings are wrong, then by looking at the sky, he can tell that it's not Maghrib yet, or he can tell it's not Isha yet. I can see the hue and the colors in the sky. I can see the hue is not there yet. Or he can see the sky. He can see that it's not Fajr yet, for example. So if he has knowledge of prayer timings, he knows how to tell it from the sky, that is better. So that he does not make a mistake in his calling of the azan, because people will perform the prayer by his calling of the azan. In Singapore, our azan on the radio, it is always later than the real azan. Our azan on the radio is always a bit later. So if you are fasting, You are not to eat until the azan, because if you do that, you already batal your fasting, because the azan is always a little bit later than the prayer timing. Why? To ensure the prayer timing has come in already, because azan is only valid when the prayer timing has come in. So they always do the azan a little bit later, right? So and in fact, it is a very strong sunnah from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to do imsak, meaning to stop eating at least 10 to 15 minutes before the azan. And that will give you a safety net that you will not eat, after subuh. And it's a tragedy in our time that people have now neglected this sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to have imsak, to stop yourself from eating 10 to 15 minutes before the azan. You will not die. You're fasting. Inshallah, you won't die. I mean, inshallah. If you die, then inshallah, die fasting. Mashallah. But don't eat right up to the azan. Your puasa batal already. There was one somebody mentioned, messaged, on one of our groups. She asked her. She said that she's going to fast a day and she's doing a qada fast. And then she stopped eating 15 minutes before the azan. She went to the bathroom and she was brushing her teeth. And then she felt something in her mouth, like a small bit of kurma or something in her mouth, and she swallowed it. So when she swallowed it, she came out of the toilet. Just then, she swallowed and she came out of the toilet. She heard the azan being called. Okay, so she asked the question, is her prayer, is her fasting valid or not? The answer is no, because the azan being called tells you that the prayer actually already came in before that. So when she swallowed whatever she swallowed, it's already dah masuk waktu already. It's already subuh already. Right? So her prayer already was her fasting was already batal. Even though she said that I came out of the toilet, I just swallowed, then just azan right after I swallowed. Right after I swallowed, it just azan. At the point of you swallowing, already subuh. Because the azan is always after. In Singapore, our radio is always a bit after. It's always a lagging. And even when it comes to technology, there's always a lag from what is real to what when it's called out. So mashallah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. So be very, very careful about that. Don't think time yourself to the minute. So if you have no azan around you and you think, wait, Maghrib is 7:15. 7:15 only you eat. Don't do that. Just wait for a while. Because of always have a buffer. So you don't actually nullify your fastings. Okay, tamam. Tatawwi'an means doing it voluntarily, right, without any pay. Tamam. Also yitan, I mean somebody who is doing it also without any pay lah. Someone doing it voluntarily. Wa hasan as-sawt wa 'ala murtafa'in wa bi qurbin al-masjid. Right, so someone on a higher ground. And then to combine the two takbirs in one breath, so not to say Allahu Akbar, to do that, but to actually do continuously in one breath. Allahu Akbar. So two in one go, and then two in one go. And then to recite the raw in Fatha in the first takbir, in the muazzin situations, Allahu Akbar. Alright, and the second raw is in the sukun. So you go Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. It's very fast. Allahu Akbar. And it's also sunnah to say, remember your prayers in your own homes. Right? Okay. Here is okay. This is the statement here. Allah sallu fil rihal. So to say Allah sallu fil rihal, if there is no jama'ah going on in the masjid, to tell people to stay in their homes. This is again in countries whereby they announce the azan and they call out the azan. So when there's heavy rain, strong winds, or a pitch dark night, and it's difficult for people to come to the masjid, then the muazzin should tell people, no, there is no jama'ah in the masjid, pray in your houses. So we say Allah sallu fil rihal, Allah sallu fil rihal. I mean, pray in your houses, I don't come to the masjid for conditions that make it difficult for people to come to the masjid. So after the first azan or after the two hayya ala has been said. So after you say the two hayya ala, basically any announcements, right, is done after the hayya ala. Right? So when you say as-salatu khayrum minan nawm, when does it happen? It happens after the two hayya ala. The hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Same thing with ala sallu fil rihal. It happens after the hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. So all the details like of azan. MashaAllah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay. And then it's also recommended to call the azan twice for subuh. So as you mentioned, in the middle of the night to call the azan, so people wake up from their sleep and get ready to come to the masjid. And then after the entrance of the subuh timing, to call the azan again for the subuh prayer. And to read the tasweep in the second azan, not in the first one but in the second one. As-salatu khairum minan nawm. Tasweep means tasweep is to say as-salatu khairum minan nawm. Tamam. And then again, not to respond to salams. As mentioned earlier on, not to respond to salams when someone does salam to a person when they are doing the azan or when they are listening to the azan. Not to respond to someone who gives salams. And for those people who are coming to a place where there's azan going on, not to give salams. They can give salams after the azan. Because the azan, you can see the azan is the most, you see, the seriousness of the azan is to the extent that if you are reading Quran, you should stop your Quran reading and respond to the azan. It is to that extent. It's to that extent. Stop your Quran reading and respond to the azan. So if Quran already, you're not supposed to continue reading the Quran when the azan is being called, then what more anything else? Subhanallah. And in fact, it is recommended that people do not even do anything while the azan is being called, but to stop all their activities and listen carefully to the azan, to give the azan its full right. Right, so not to walk during the azan. Right, sit down and listen. Right, during the azan. Right, and it's recommended for the listener to repeat all that is said by the muazzin except for the hayya ala salah. He will say wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. So those who are listening, right, to say to repeat. Like whatever the muazzin says, and then say the hawla wala quwwata illa billah when the muazzin says hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. So all these are recommendations. Of course, if someone has work to do, has to go, and the adhan is being called, of course you continue doing whatever you have to do, because you are on your way. Like for example, if I'm walking to school and then in the rib and the adhan is being called, do I stop where I am? Or do I continue walking? Of course I continue walking. Right? The bigger makruh here is for the muazzin to walk here and there. The muazzin should stand still. But also the people who are listening to the azan, they should also have respect for the azan. If they are cooking, to stop cooking. If they can stop cooking right? If they are reading, if they are writing, if they are teaching, whatever they are doing, they should stop. Right? And then give respect to the azan and then continue thereafter. We always hear that if Habib Omar is teaching and then the azan is being called, he will stop. He will just stop mid-sentence. He will just stop. And they will respond to the azan, and then they will continue from wherever they left off after the azan. And they will respond to the azan, they read the dua after the azan, they read Abu Bakr bin Sheikh Abu Bakr bin Salim after the azan. They will read a few things of the azan, and then the Fatiha. They send Fatiha to the soul of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the Sahaba and all of his family. Then they will send Fatiha to Nabi Bilal and Zainab bin Maktoum and all the muazzin from the time of Rasulullah to our time. Then they will send Fatiha to the families and to the parents and to the Muslims, and then Fatiha. Then they finish the entire matter of the azan. Right, then they continue doing whatever they were doing. if they were teaching or learning or whatever, then they continue after that. Now, mashallah, when the azan comes in, they will greet the azan as well. I always hear them hababano. I should always say marhaban min qawl al bisalah, marhaban ahlan wa sahlan. So when she first hears the first takbir, she will say marhaban. She will say, welcome to the one who is true in speech. Welcome to the prayer. Welcome. And then they will go into their response to the azan, mashallah. And their response is not just repeating. They have all kinds of du'as in between. It's all to do with responding to the azan, mashallah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Right. And then, so after saying it 4 times during the azan, it is after the two, that is after the two hayya ala, and not in the tasweep. So basically with the hayya ala, when they say hayya ala al-falah, is it hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, right? So when they call people to the prayer, you say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. When it is said as-salatu khairum minan nawm, you say sadaqta wa bararta. Sadaqta wa bararta is right here. Here. Sadaqta wa bararta. That's a response for as-salatu khairum minan nawm. Sadaqta wa bararta. You have indeed spoken the truth and you have done rightly, and you are righteous. Right? Wa illa fi kalimatay wal iqama. So for the iqama, you say when the imam, when the one who does the iqama says qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah, response will be aqamaha Allahu wa adamaha, aqamaha Allahu wa adamaha. Tamam, response hafal qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah, you say aqamaha Allahu wa adamaha, aqamaha Allahu wa adamaha, right, in the response to the iqama. Okay, may Allah establish it, make it last. Going down further. Okay, as mentioned just now, it's recommended to stop Quran to reply to Adhan and Iqama. It's also recommended for one. I want to finish the entire chapter for today. It's also recommended for one to reply it after sexual intercourse. It means you're in your, that if someone if someone is having sexual intercourse while the Adhan was called, I say that with the husband, and then the husband azan is called, you don't respond to the azan in your in this kind of activities, right? Or you're in your junub. After then you respond. Also with the lavatory and if you're praying, then you respond to the azan after you finish praying. Right, so you end your prayer first, then after your prayer you qada the response to the azan as mentioned earlier on. Right, okay, it is sunnah to salawat on the Rasulullah twice after the azan. Right, so after the azan has finished, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. That's salawat twice after the azan. So with the La ilaha illallah, you go into the shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There's one salawat, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, another salawat. Okay, so 2 salawats after the azan. And then the dua after azan, which is here, Allahumma rabba hadhihi da'wati tamma wa sadqa qa'imah ati Muhammadan al-wasila wal fadila wa ba'athu maqaman mahmud alladhi wa'atahu innaka la tukhliful mi'ad. And then you can dua whatever you want to dua after the azan. Don't be heedless of the duas that are answered, and important duas like Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana, Allahumma nas'aluka al-'afwa wal 'afiyah wal mu'afiyah da'imah, Rabbana hab lana min azwajina, Rabbi ighfirli wa liwalidayya. May dua for your parents as well after your azan. May dua for your children after the azan. So all times by the azan is the du'as are mustajab. Right, tamam. Is calling so to supplicate after the azan and the period between azan and iqama, because dua between azan and iqama mustajab. Calling the azan is more virtuous than actually becoming the imam. MashaAllah. Because of many hadith that is actually on the fadila, on the virtue of calling azan, is someone who works as a muazzin, mashallah, is one of those people who will be able to intercede for others on the day of judgment. And someone who works for muazzin, there is a hadith about how many years of being a muazzin this person will be of those who will intercede for his family members on the day of judgment. It is recommended to join both the azan and iqamah alone. That means the one who does the azan does the iqamah. It's better for the one who does the azan to do the iqamah, same person. And then again with the iqamah, similar conditions. For the one who does the iqamah, to have to be a Muslim and to have an age of discernment. That means not a female can call the iqamah. Doesn't have to be a male, can be a female. So there are no males around, that you call the iqamah for your own females in the house. So you can, and it is recommended to move to somewhere else to do the iqamah, so a different place from where the azan was made, and to use a softer voice during the azan, because it's only for the people who are right around you. So not to be so loud, but to be a bit softer for those around you to hear you. And the same thing with the iqamah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, as you turn the head right and left as with the azan. Tamam. If a group of people call the azan together, then the one who calls the iqamah should be the routine muazzin. Then the muazzin that is first, followed by voting. So the one who is basically the routine one, mean the one who is his job is to call the azan. So that one is the one who's first, he's prioritized over everybody else. The iqamah depends on the imam's opinion, whereas the azan is based on the muazzin's opinion. So so as to see who should be the when the azan should be called. So when the azan should be called is based on the muazzin. The muazzin needs to be someone who is knowledgeable to be able to see the prayer timings, right? So on his opinion, he sees that it's already the prayer timing, then he calls the azan. Whereas for the iqamah is when the imam is ready to pray. So the imam is ready to pray, the imam can say to the one who's doing the iqamah, call the iqamah. So the imam's opinion, the imam's telling the one who is doing the iqamah, do the iqamah, I am ready to pray. So you're not to do the iqamah before the imam is ready. Wait for the imam to be ready, and then you call the iqamah. For the azan, the muazzin is to ascertain and to check if the prayer time has really come in, then he can do the azan. Especially if it's the beginning of the prayer time, but it might not be clear that the prayer time had come in. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, alhamdulillah, we finished that section, inshallah. And the next lesson, we will go into the integrals of the prayer, the sifat of the prayer. And wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. Anna Allah yarzuqana ilman nafi'an wa amalan khatiman mustaqim. ودلالة على الهدى ويسر به وعب النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وإلى أرواح معاني من مشايخنا وذوي الحب علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.